When my mother-in-law moved in, she began rewriting our child's schedule, discipline, even bedtime stories. My husband said I was overreacting. That night, I found a note in my son's room that made me pack my bag because I never thought I'd walk out on my family. I'm the kind of person who sticks it out, even when things get hard. I don't quit. I don't give up on people. But the night I found that note in my son's room, something in me snapped. Let me back up. Chris and I have been married for 8 years. We met in Chicago, where we still live, and we've built a quiet life here. We both work full-time, me in healthcare, him in IT, and we have one son, Jamie. He's 6. He's sweet, smart, kind. He loves dinosaurs and Legos and bedtime stories. He used to crawl into bed with me every morning just to snuggle for 5 minutes before school. That was our time, our little routine. Everything changed when Chris's mom, Dolores, moved in. It was supposed to be temporary. She had a minor heart scare, nothing major, just some high blood pressure, and Chris panicked. He's her only child, and she knows exactly how to use that to her advantage. She can't be alone right now, he said. Just until she's back on her feet. I didn't argue. I figured a couple weeks, maybe a month. We had the space, and Jamie loved his grandma. What harm could it do? At first, it was small things. She'd tidy up Jamie's room and throw out toys she thought were too violent. She reorganized my kitchen drawers. She made passive comments like, "Oh, you're still giving him juice? So much sugar for a little one." I bit my tongue. I told myself it was just her way, that she meant well. But within a few weeks, it was clear she was taking over. She started picking Jamie up from school without asking me. She changed his afternoon routine. No more cartoons, no more playdates unless she approved of the other child's family. She even rewrote the bedtime stories. She replaced his books with religious ones from her church. Said they were better for his soul. I told Chris. I begged him to set boundaries. She's crossing lines, I said. She's undermining me as a parent. He shrugged. She's helping. You've been so tired lately. Let her take some pressure off. It's not help, I said. It's control. But he didn't see it. Then came the discipline. Jamie had a tantrum one evening. He was overtired, that's all. Dolores dragged him to his room and told him to sit facing the wall for 20 minutes. No toys. No dinner. When I walked in, she said, "He needs structure. You've been too soft with him." I told her never to punish my child again without speaking to me. She just stared at me and said, "I raised one son. He turned out just fine." That night, Chris and I fought. He said I was being too sensitive. "She's here to help," he said again, like a broken record. "Why are you so threatened by her?" Because she was slowly erasing me. She started calling herself Mama to Jamie. At first, he corrected her, but after a while he didn't. He started looking to her for approval instead of me. He even slipped once and called me Miss Rachel, the name of his preschool teacher from 2 years ago. Then came the note. I was cleaning up his toys when I saw it, half hidden under his dinosaur plush. A piece of folded construction paper with MOM written on it in big block letters. I smiled at first. I thought it was a picture. I opened it and read, "Grandma says you don't know what's best for me anymore. She says she's going to be my real mom now." My whole body went cold. He wrote that. My baby. And I know he didn't come up with that idea on his own. She said that to him. She planted that in his head. And Chris let it happen. I sat there on the floor, in that little room filled with the things I'd picked out for my son, his books, his bedding, his clothes, and I felt like I was a guest in someone else's home.
You picked a bag.
One duffel. Just essentials. I wasn't running away. I needed time to think.
To breathe.
To figure out how I let this get so far. I left a note for Chris that said, "We need to talk. About everything you've let happen. About our son.
About me."
And I left. I didn't go far that first night. Just checked into a hotel near O'Hare with my bag and sat on the bed staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I was too angry for that. Too numb. I kept reading Jamie's note over and over, like somehow if I stared long enough, it would change. The next morning, I called Chris. He didn't answer. I sent a text. I'm safe. I need space. Don't involve Jamie in this. We'll talk tomorrow. No reply. I stayed away for 2 nights. On the 3rd day, I went back home around noon when I knew Jamie would be at school. I wanted to talk to Chris without Dolores around. But when I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Jamie's room was different. His dinosaur comforter was gone, replaced with some stiff-looking navy blue quilt I'd never seen before. His shelves, where he kept the little things he collected, like rocks and action figures, were empty. In their place were books. Religious books. Discipline books. Know Where the Wild Things Are, No Pete the Cat. Everything that made his room his was gone. Dolores stood in the hallway, arms crossed. You're not supposed to be here, she said. It's my house, I told her. She smiled. Not anymore. Chris is filing for emergency custody. My stomach dropped. What the hell are you talking about? He said you're unstable, she said, like it was a fact. You abandoned your child. That's neglect. I laughed, but it was hollow. You seriously think a judge is going to believe I'm unfit because I left for 2 nights? She stepped closer. It's not just that. We've got documentation. Notes. Evidence. She didn't answer. Later that day, I got served. Chris had filed for temporary full custody, claiming I'd abandoned the marital home and that I'd shown erratic behavior in front of Jamie. He listed my job schedule, how I worked late shifts at the hospital, as proof I wasn't present enough as a mother. And he had statements from Dolores describing concerning emotional instability, citing my hostility and paranoia. She painted me like some delusional, unfit woman unraveling at the seams. He used everything I ever said in private against me. I tried to talk to Jamie on the phone, but Dolores kept intercepting. He's tired. He's busy. When I finally heard his voice, he sounded flat. Tired. Distant. Like someone had drained the life out of him. I got a lawyer. Expensive, but I had no choice. We filed a response. I fought for temporary visitation rights. Chris's lawyer argued that Jamie was doing better under the current setup, that I was disruptive, that Dolores had been the one holding the family together. I wanted to scream. She was the reason I left, and now she was being painted as the savior. The worst part? Chris seemed comfortable with all of it, like he'd planned this. My own husband. The man who once cried with me when we brought Jamie home from the hospital. He was letting his mother replace me, not just in the house, but in my son's life. The judge granted me supervised visitation for the time being, 4 hours every Saturday, in a sterile room at a child services center. I had to smile like everything was fine while Jamie looked at me like I was a stranger. And Dolores was in the waiting room every time, watching me, smirking. I knew then. This wasn't about help. This wasn't even about Jamie. This was about control. Power. And I wasn't going to get my son back by playing nice. I had to get smart. I had to get mean. I had to get evidence. Because if Dolores and Chris wanted a war, I was ready to fight. The day I decided to stop reacting and start investigating was the day everything changed. I remembered something Dolores said when she first moved in, that she wanted Jamie to attend the same private religious school Chris had gone to as a kid. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Jamie was only in kindergarten, but it stuck with me. I started digging. I called the admissions office at St. Augustine Prep. I pretended to be a curious parent and asked about waitlists. The woman on the phone was friendly, helpful. Oh, we just had an application come through for a transfer student. Jamie, my last name, he'd be starting in the fall. Interview already done, just waiting on the deposit. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Chris and Dolores had already tried to enroll my son in a private religious school I never agreed to, without telling me, months before any court ruling, before the custody hearing was even finished. They were acting like they'd already won. I took that information to my lawyer. He was shocked. This could work in your favor, he said. They're assuming custody before it's been awarded. Shows intent to alienate. I needed more. So I started recording everything. Every phone call with Chris. Every interaction with Dolores. Every visitation with Jamie, I wrote down word for word what he said, what he wore, what he looked like. And slowly, little things started to slip. One day, during visitation, Jamie said, "Grandma says you don't live in our house anymore because you're not safe." Another time, she said you yelled so much the neighbors called the police. None of that ever happened, but the judge didn't know that. And if Dolores was telling Jamie those things, she was poisoning him against me. Then came the video. A neighbor, God bless her, reached out to me, said she'd seen something strange on her Ring camera. She knew we were going through custody stuff and thought I should see it. It was a 45-second clip. Dolores standing outside our front door with Jamie. He's sobbing. She grabs his arm hard, yanks him toward the house. "You stop crying about her right now," she says. "She chose to leave you. She doesn't love you like I do." I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was abusive. We filed it immediately. The judge reviewed everything, school records, audio clips, the video. There was finally doubt cast on their version of events. I got extended visitation. Unsupervised. Then joint custody pending a full evaluation. But that wasn't the biggest twist. 2 weeks later, I found a bank statement in our shared email inbox. Chris had forgotten to change the password. There was a large withdrawal, $15,000, from our joint account. The memo said, "Care trust for Jamie." Except the money didn't go into any trust. It went straight to a personal checking account under Dolores's name. I had the records, the signature, the transfer trail. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just emotional abuse. It was financial. It was legal. It was personal. They weren't just trying to erase me as a mother. They were setting me up to disappear completely. While Dolores played house with my child and my money, that's when I stopped caring about staying civil. They wanted war? They had no idea who they were dealing with. Once I had proof of the $15,000 transfer, I felt the fear in me shift into something harder. Anger. Not the kind that explodes, the kind that simmers. Quiet, cold, focused. I didn't tell Chris I knew. I let him keep thinking I was just another desperate, emotional mother clawing for time with her kid. That worked in my favor. Behind the scenes, my lawyer got to work. We subpoenaed bank records, filed for a forensic accountant, and added financial misconduct to our custody response. It wasn't just about Jamie anymore. This was fraud. This was theft. But I also knew courts are slow. And Chris and Dolores had gotten smart. They started coaching Jamie more carefully, less obvious things, subtler digs. I needed something new. Something real-time. So I got a nanny cam. I hid it in Jamie's backpack. A little clip-on that looked like a toy keychain. It uploaded audio and low-res video straight to the cloud. The first few days, I heard nothing but routine, pickups, snacks, bath time. But on the 5th day, I struck gold. Jamie was sitting at the kitchen table. Dolores was helping with homework. Jamie. Mom said she's going to get me back. Dolores. She's not your mom anymore, Jamie. Not really. She left you. I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who loves you. Jamie. But I miss her. Dolores. You'll forget her soon. Just like your father did. That last part, just like your father did, that stopped me cold.
What did she mean by that?
I started digging into Chris's email accounts again. Passwords he'd forgotten to change. Buried in his sent folder, I found emails between him and someone named Allie. Dozens. Late-night messages, long threads. Emotional. Intimate. The first one was dated 6 months before Dolores moved in. They weren't just sleeping together. They were planning a life. And Dolores was in on it. One message from Chris read, "Once we get full custody, she's gone. My mom's helping us with everything. Don't worry, we'll get Jamie. Then we can really start over." They were planning to erase me from Jamie's life.
Chris.
My husband. The man I slept next to for years. Dolores didn't just overstep. She conspired, with my husband and his mistress, to steal my child, my home, and even my identity as a mother. It wasn't about safety. It wasn't about Jamie. It was a setup from the start. Now I had Financial fraud records, emotional abuse audio-video of physical intimidation emails proving premeditated parental alienation, and a full timeline of deceit. Everything was ready. But I wasn't going to walk into court and ask for peace. I was going to flip their entire world upside down. They thought they broke me. They had no idea what I'd been building in the dark. Court day came like a storm I'd been waiting on for months. I walked in calm, dressed sharp, holding nothing but a thick binder in one hand. Chris sat across the room, jaw tight, his lawyer whispering something in his ear. Dolores was there too, in the gallery, wearing a fake smile and one of her pastel cardigans. She didn't look so sharp when she saw my lawyer wheel in a box of evidence. The judge was a woman in her 50s.
Tough. No nonsense.
She'd seen hundreds of custody cases. I don't know if she expected another messy, she said meltdown. What she got instead was facts. We laid it all out. First, the financials. How Dolores moved $15,000 from our joint account into her own under the false pretense of a trust. The forensic accountant testified that no such account existed. Then the video footage, the ring clip from the neighbor, showing Dolores yanking Jamie by the arm and telling him I didn't love him. Then the audio from the nanny cam. Clear voices. Clear manipulation. No way to spin it. Then we played the emails. When the one from Chris popped up on the screen, once we get full custody, she's gone. My mom's helping us with everything. I watched his lawyer drop her pen. Dolores turned to Chris, furious. I guess she didn't know he kept everything in writing. And then I stood up and spoke. I told the judge everything. Not dramatic. Just the truth. How I raised Jamie. How Dolores started small and slowly took over. How Chris let it happen. Then planned behind my back to cut me out entirely. I showed every message, every lie, every moment I wasn't believed. The judge looked at me for a long time before speaking. Her voice was steady. This court finds substantial evidence of parental alienation, financial misconduct, and emotional manipulation of the minor child. Chris lost primary custody immediately. I was awarded full legal and physical custody. He was given limited visitation, supervised, until he could prove stability. Dolores? The judge issued a restraining order. She was banned from all contact with Jamie.
Permanently.
But I didn't stop there. I filed charges against her for financial fraud. And with the help of my lawyer, we opened an elder abuse investigation from her prior residence, the assisted living center she'd abruptly left. Turns out she had a history of manipulation, including one documented case of controlling access to someone else's finances. She had a pattern. Chris didn't just lose custody. He lost his job too. The day after the emails came out in court, I sent them to his boss. Not out of spite, but because they included company timestamps. He was using company resources to scheme and lie. I knew his company's ethics policy. He was terminated within a week. As for Allie, his mistress, she disappeared fast. Once custody didn't pan out and the house wasn't his anymore, she stopped replying. Guess she wasn't in it for love after all. It took months to rebuild my life. Jamie didn't bounce back overnight. He had questions. He had nightmares. I sat with him through every one. I let him cry. I let him ask, why did Dad say those things? And does Grandma still love me? I didn't lie. I just told him, sometimes grown-ups get things wrong. But I'll never leave you again. And I haven't. I changed the locks. I changed the passwords. I changed everything about the life they tried to take from me. Chris still tries sometimes. A card. A letter. I keep them all. For the custody file. Dolores hasn't been seen in nearly a year.
She vanished.
Maybe to Florida. Maybe to hell. But every night, I tuck my son into bed. I read him the books she threw away. I tell him, I love you. Always have. Always will. And that, more than the court orders, more than the restraining orders, more than the ruined reputations, is the revenge that matters most. They tried to erase me, but I'm still here. And they lost everything.